Hi, thanks for joining. Today we are going to cover the basic configuration section of a slot request configuration. So here I'm on the basic configuration page, and the first required field that I have to enter is that I have to give my slot request configuration a name. So I've picked Exact University Slot Request 2020. It is recommended that you go ahead and put your school name in the title, along with maybe the current year or the year that you're asking slots for. In the basic configuration section, we have additional items that you'll be able to make decisions on. The first one is select a slot layout for the request. If you're a PT, PTA, OT, or OTA client, this is a field you'll never have to modify. This PT/OT layout is the default and is what you'll need for this request. We have set confirm slots to active. This is also defaults to yes and something you don't have to worry about. When sites are offering you slots through this process, we want those slots to come in as active in your system so you can utilize them and assign students in the future. The third option allows sites to offer first come, first serve slots. So in some parts of the country and maybe more saturated areas, this idea of first come, first serve slots is pretty prominent. So a site, often receives lots of requests from schools and maybe they only have one or two slots to provide. So they'll often tell all of their school partners that, hey, this is what I have, but it's considered first come, first serve. So whoever can get to me fast enough with, like a student name is who can obtain that slot. So by turning this on, you're allowing a site to notate that it is a first come, first serve slot. You can also provide additional instructions regarding that the site can see when they're notating that down. If this is not an issue in your area or not something you're used to, feel free to leave it off and then that option would not be available for sites to notate. Then we have send request only to designated group of sites. If in your system you happen to be using site categories, which allows you to categorize sites by particular things, this option may be helpful for you. If I turn this on, I could select what category or group that I want to designate. So as an example, for OT, if I've designated a site as a level 1 site, I could click here and select, level 1 from the menu, and then my particular slot request would only go to sites that fall under that site category. So it's a nice way to kind of narrow down what sites you want to send to for this particular request. If you're not using site categories or don't want to worry about it, feel free to turn that to no. Then we have set a due date for site responses. This can be helpful. This allows you to plug in a date that you would like a site to respond by. So if I turn that to yes, I'll have a nice calendar feature here where I can plug in a date. And it's not a hard deadline. It doesn't lock your sites out of offering you slots. It's simply more of a suggestion that, hey, you would like a response by this time. Then we have display batch class name to the site on the slot request page. When your slot request is sent out, we include a schedule of all of the sessions that you've, are asking for slots for. And so part of that is including the class name. But if you don't want to share class name information, feel free to turn that to no, and that part will be hidden for you. Then we have select setting to be shown to site. So all settings is the default option, and what this means is when your sites are filling out your slot request, they can select any setting that works for them, for a particular slot. So they're going to see the whole setting list available in your system, and they'll get to choose what makes sense to them. Now there's additional options here that would allow you to narrow that selection down further. So this session sequence setting, if you have multiple sequences and you've designated, a particular setting for that sequence, we can definitely show only those settings assigned to the sequences. We have site settings, so any setting that you've assigned to a particular site in your system, so maybe that's 2 settings, 3 settings, whatever it may be that's applicable for that site, we can only show them then those, few options and allow them to select from that list. And the bottom one would allow you to create a custom list. So you can pick and choose what settings you want to make available. And again, those are the only settings that would be visible to the site to select from. So all settings tends to work for most people. It is the default option, but you can narrow your choices down further by selecting any of the others. And last but not least, we have this customize your site response options. If I turn that to yes, when a site is looking at your slot request, they have kind of 3 options. They can either offer you slots, say no, or they can use or select this maybe later option, which would allow them to basically put in a date and tell you, hey, follow up with me on this particular day. So here what this is showing is that yes, no, and maybe later kind of options. But if you don't like the terminology we use there, you can actually select the checkbox and go ahead and customize the language so it makes sense for your program. If you don't feel the need to customize, feel free to leave that to no, and you'll have our 3 standard options there. And that is all for the basic configuration section.